Hey listeners, welcome to the Atintellect podcast. Today we have with us Akansha, who's an interior designer based in Mumbai. Akansha shares her journey from studying interior design to starting Design Bucket and eventually joining one of the leading design firms in Mumbai. This episode is like no other. It's action packed with anecdotes, visuals, and design references. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. Hey Akansha, welcome to Intellect. Thank you for being part of this show. Um, it's since the day I saw your work at Design Bucket, which is your Instagram page, I was literally a fan of what you do. So I thought it'd be cool to reach out to you and understand your design process and your journey, what led you to being involved with the digital as well as non-digital part of design as well. Um, so I'm very much excited for this conversation. I'm really thankful for you to taking out the time uh, to do this. So really a warm welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Kansha. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. And I'm really looking forward to have this conversation with you about design and just life in general.
Great, awesome. So we'll start with your journey. My question to you is: were you always fascinated by design while growing up? And how did you pursue, like, how did you choose to pursue interior design as your field of study, and subsequently your profession?
So, if we talk about me as a child, I was just very creative. I was super creative right from my childhood. So, I
Okay.
loved getting into making arts and crafts and making small gifts for my parents. And in fact, I used to go so over the top that like on weekends I used to make some place for my parents, and I used to make sure my family come watches it. And just anything that I liked to put myself out there, and in a creative way.
Mhm.
So I've always been this kid while growing up. um but later on, like after school and college happened, I don't know why, but I think I was surrounded by those kind of people that always told me that you need to ace at academics,
Mm.
and how getting good grades was the thing that mattered the most.
Mhm.
So during my school years, I kind of shifted my this thing, and like I got more concentrated towards studying and academics, and just getting those perfect grades. That
Mhm.
somewhere I think I lost that much touch into my creative side.
Mm.
So that went on after I finished schooling. And you had to choose, like, if you wanted to go into which stream had to pursue ahead. That's when, like, I actually sat down and I thought, I did my like, I did a SWOT analysis as to where I stand and what do I like and things like that. And I realized that so whenever I used to go out for drives. Okay, I used to do this small thing with myself where I used to critique buildings whenever we passed them. So
Okay.
this was like a self-analysis, like could say only I used to think that, okay, no, this I want to rate this so much and this that much. It's nobody knew what I was doing, but that was just this thing that I was doing by myself.
Okay.
And also one more thing, that whenever I used to go out, I was always very like, rather than just noticing normal things what people notice, I used to, like, if I'm entering a store or if I'm entering a mall, I
Mhm.
would notice the ceiling, I would notice the flooring, I would notice things that normal people won't notice.
Okay.
So, I just like, this was the time when I actually thought about these things, and I realized, okay, I think architecture or interiors is my thing to do.
Mhm.
And this was the time where I had no idea what UI, UX, or even graphic design meant at that point.
Okay.
So, yeah, so at that point, I was like, okay, let's get into architecture and then I'll figure it out. And So I gave all the necessary exams and stuff. And then, again, I had one pros and cons list for either architecture or interiors. And then I was pretty much sure that, okay, interiors is the way to go.
Awesome. Great. That's a very interesting and a very honest story about how did you pick interior as your uh, field of study and profession as well. Um, I can relate to the being a critique to the buildings and interiors because I think any good interior person or somebody who's really curious about design would have a similar mindset. I like I am these days very much fascinated about digital products. So when I'm, let's say, using an app or a service, I would really critique them for the design and how they work. So I can relate the same thing to what you do for interior design and functionality, which is great. And yeah, like all of us, we all have this uh, creative thing in our heads when we are kids, but then somewhere someone says that grades are important and we lose that touch. But I'm really glad that you got an opportunity to later in your life really pursue what you were actually curious about, and now you've graduated and you're doing it as a full-time thing. So that's really awesome. Can you share a bit more about your college experience, your internships? Like, how is it like to be in a interior, like in a design school doing interior design? I know it's very hectic. It's very frustrating because the design reviews that you guys have are really, really, uh, I mean, nerve-wracking. But how's the overall experience?
Okay, so I think at least in the first year, I wasn't prepared for a design school at all
Mhm.
because the kind of uh, the kind of way these schools function are very different to normal colleges because the amount of perfection that they want, the detailing, the number of times they make you do assignments to just crack the I'm sure they were only trying to instill the correct um the correct
Quality and like level of quality.
qualities, the correct qualities in us. But but I think I wasn't prepared for it in the first year at least. But yeah, later on I realized, and I realized why they're doing certain things, and then just went ahead with the flow.
Okay. And
And so basically, we had mentors. So one mentor would look after 5 to 6 kids. And then we used to have different projects every semester. So like one semester, say we have a residential design, or one semester we had a cafe design, or then we had office. So we pick up our theme and everything. And then the entire semester we're working on that project. So um, first the layouts get approved and everything, but we have our mentor with us throughout our journey. So that's a plus because we get one-on-one with the mentors.
awesome. That's great. Um, I know the pain because one of my cousin brothers is did architecture and I think interior design from uh, Amity University, which is based in Gurgaon. So he's just 1 year younger than me. So I've been through this. I think he had a 5 year course. So I've been through his journey where he he used to like work on a design or a project or a submission. That's what they call probably overnight, and then the next day the professor would like completely reject it and ask him to redo it again, which was very frustrating for him. So I know that sort of experience that the folks have to go through. But yeah, it's tough, but I think it all pays off, when you graduate and you get a job and you start working. So
Yeah, so in the beginning I used to think that, oh, why do I have to do this again? But then when I reached my final result, I'm like, okay, now I know why I had to do it again. And you automatically know how this is so much more better than the first one. So
oh
you
yeah,
figure it out by yourself, and then you realize, okay, this was necessary.
definitely. How was the social life in college? Did you get I mean, was it like very much focused towards grades and design and stuff, or you guys had moments of fun as well in between?
First year, since I was just adjusting to this new lifestyle, I was not very much into exploring or having fun to say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was just trying to adjust to the new lifestyle and everything, so
Okay.
that was happening. Second year and third year was the lockdown phase for us,
Yeah.
so that was again a different challenge. But yeah, I made some good friends definitely, and we used to have good discussions. We used to discuss our projects and stuff together. But yeah, not like didn't have a proper college life, so to say.
Okay. Yeah, I think because of the pandemic, you missed out on that sort of interaction and bonding, I'd say, with the classmates. But these discussions during the pandemic, you'll probably be having on phone or Zoom and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. So because of the lockdowns and everything, we used to literally be on a Zoom call throughout the day. We used to
Oh,
sleep on the call. We used to eat on the
wow.
call. We used to like literally manage our times together that way.
Wow. That's crazy. So like now you know, when the pandemic is like starting to subside, do you guys catch up frequently now? Like, are you trying to have that sort of college experience with your friends now, or like everybody's now settling into their jobs and stuff like that?
Yeah, so everybody is settling into their jobs. So that's why we made it a point that after we got done with our exams, like our last semester, we made it a point to have one graduation trip. And so we all decided to go to Goa, and that was pretty fun.
Great, great. Yeah, that's really awesome. We'll talk more about travel and your trips and everything else at a later stage, because I have like a slot in the podcast just reserved for that. But we'll move on with. Can you touch base upon your internship experience very quickly? Like, how did you get those internships, and then how was it a culture shock, like studying in college and then translating that to internship? Is it like it was it like a night and day difference, or was it more like you're applying things that you learned in college into your internships?
Okay, I think it was drastically different.
Hmm.
I think I'm a different person after my internship.
Okay.
So, my entire internship was from office. Like, I didn't have a work from home internship, thank God.
Okay. Great.
So, I'm completely against the whole work from home concept.
Hmm.
So, pretty glad that it was from office and everything.
Okay.
And it was life changing because the kind of exposure that you get while you're working with people, like in a collaborative space, and when you're working on one project with like 5 different design minds. So
Hmm.
when I'm doing my college project, it's just me and some inputs from my mentor.
Okay.
But here there are like so many people who are going through the same design, who are putting their inputs on the same thing, and how, yeah, how organization takes place in a
Mhm.
design environment. I learned all of that. I
Okay.
learned how to interact more with people, how to put my design thinking out there.
Mhm.
So it was a different experience for sure. And since my internship had a very corporate setup
Mhm.
as compared to my other friends who were interning at studios,
Okay.
so that was a pretty different environment for me as well, like working in a corporate, having that 10 to 6 work hour.
Mhm.
And yeah, that was pretty different.
Great. So you intern in a like a like a large organization compared
Yeah,
to.
so it's like a corporate, Talati and Partners.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I can remember my internship experience, although it was not related to what the my studies, but just entering to that corporate culture really like makes you question like what why are you even studying what you're studying, and you start doing things in a different way once you get back from the internship, and it's definitely a life-changing experience overall. But
Definitely. And also, so my work involved, meeting a lot of uh, vendors, so talking to people from different streams of life.
Mhm.
So in college, you're pretty restricted to the kind of people you're meeting. The age group is more or less similar.
Okay.
And especially when you're talking to the people from your school, they've been more or less brought up in the same way as you are. But when you're working somewhere, you're meeting people from massively different fields.
Mm.
So it's you learn a lot.
Great, great. Now, cool. So I think you've mentioned the mentorship piece quite frequently in the conversation. I just wanted to stress more about it. So how was the mentorship like? Like the mentors were seniors in your school, or like there were some external mentors, or it was faculty who's playing the role of the mentor?
Yeah. So I'd like to talk about the mentor that I had during my intern period.
Hmm.
So, like I've learned so much from her. I realized how she got all her work done. There's something about these people, how they can manage things so efficiently. So she always got her work done, but at the same time, she also made sure that I looked at it as an assignment for me to learn.
Okay.
she never made it look she never made any activity look like, okay, this is some work that needs to be done.
Okay.
So that was damn interesting about how she managed everything. And how, so she is 20 years senior to me.
Okay.
So that was just too much to learn from her. In fact, every single day I used to like learn stuff from her. So
Awesome. So the mentor you're talking about, so are they already like they must be working in a firm or a studio or a organization, right? Like are they working professions?
yeah, so I'm talking about the mentor from my internship. So she was
Oh,
actually
okay.
my associate, the principal associate.
Oh, okay. Okay. Great. Yeah, I mean, getting to know really good people at an early stage in your life really transforms a lot, and I'm glad that you learned so much from her, and I think you can then translate that experience into your current role. So your current role is like a conversion of your internship, or those are different
Right,
firms?
right. I'm
Oh,
continuing in the same firm.
oh, that's great. So you'll probably be working under the same person.
Right, right. And
Awesome.
I'm
That's great.
really looking forward to that.
Yeah, that'll be good. That'll be great. Awesome. Cool. Moving ahead, let's talk a bit about Design Bucket. As I said before, I I stumbled across that Instagram page from a Twitter profile. Really liked a lot of stuff that you've put up there. Pretty interesting. So we'll start with how the idea of Design Bucket came along. So you were doing this interior studies altogether. How did you think of doing like venture into digital design, let's say?
Right. So this was second year of college. I was just done with my last sem exams, and the lockdown had begun,
Mhm.
and we were all at home and nothing to do. And then like it was my birthday around that time. So you have this whole reflection, your self reflection on your birthday. I
Oh,
always do that on
okay.
all my birthdays. Like I just make mini notes of how far I've come from my last in the last year. So I was just doing that, and I realized, okay, last year has been pretty, like it's I don't know. I was just not very happy with all the notes I'd made that particular birthday.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, I need to do something about it and everything. And I realized that the only way to make stuff or to literally create something is if you have a container to fill it.
Okay.
It's
Can you
like
can you
I want,
explain more about that?
yeah. So this concept that I have is, let's say I wouldn't do something if I don't have something to fill it
Mm.
in.
Okay.
Let's say I have a bucket.
Mm.
Okay. Only if I have a bucket, I'll fill something in it, right?
Okay.
I'll be willing to fill stuff in it.
Okay.
So yeah, so I always thought that, okay, I need to have some platform and I need to make something and then think about, okay, if I'll have a start, I'll always know that I want to keep, filling this thing up.
Mm.
So that's how the whole term design bucket came into picture.
Okay.
And that's how it started. So earlier, I didn't know where it's going to go. I just was very fascinated by graphics on Instagram, and um, I thought that I want to do something similar. So I just started along those lines.
Okay.
And yeah, and after I had that thing in mind, I just realized that my brain has started working differently.
Mm.
So whenever I used to notice, I started noticing even more small things in life because I had a bucket to fill it in.
Okay. Yeah.
Does it make sense now?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's great. I mean, that's where the name Design Bucket came from, right? That's
Right. So let's say I will notice something because I know that I will, utilize it in the bucket process later.
awesome.
So
Awesome.
I started noticing smaller things. I started making notes of things like very random things, but I'll just make a note of it and keep,
Mhm.
maybe next time I can just uh, go through it again and maybe I'll think about something else. So I started doing these things,
Mhm.
and then uh, things started falling in place. So, like, say today I noticed something, and then after a week again, I'll notice something else and then relate it to the thing that I noticed a week before.
Okay.
And that's how I just started jotting down my ideas and everything. And the whole process was like, let's say now today I have an idea.
Mm.
Okay. Then comes the second part, is what is the best way to execute it. So like in terms of graphic or visual design, there's 2D, there's 3D, there is static animation, or there are different fields, right?
Yeah.
So whatever is the best way to go about for that idea, I used to choose that path and then learn that in detail. So like say for a certain project, I need to learn After Effects, which is an animation software to create motion graphics. So then I used to learn that software and then, make sure that I'm able to uh, achieve what I visualize.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's how my design process went about for Design Bucket.
Mm.
And one more very interesting thing that used to happen was I used to talk about my ideas a lot. So like let's say today I had a thought, okay, and I noted down that idea. So I used to quickly, ring up a friend or my parents or even my house help for that matter and just put my idea out there. And I realized that when I'm talking about my idea to somebody,
Mhm.
I'm immediately improvising on the idea in my head.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so let's say I have a very rough draft that I've just noted down, but then when I'm talking about it to somebody, because obviously I want to impress that person so that, you know, they eventually like my idea.
Mm.
So even when I'm just talking about it or when I'm sharing this thing with somebody, I'm improvising it and I realize, okay, this is much better than my original draft.
Okay. Yeah. That's great. That's great.
So yeah, so I think talking about ideas to my friends and just people helped me a lot. And also, everybody has a different feedback.
Mm.
By feedback, I mean they have a small input to
Yeah.
whatever you're saying. Everybody has some input to whatever you're going to say. So, not necessarily you take that input, but just understanding how different people think differently and trying to add that to your thought process. So it used to be a beautiful experience, honestly.
Great, great, awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. Um, I mean, I really want to go deep into this because, like, first of all, kudos to your exercise where you, on each of your birthdays, you sit down and, just reflect on life. I've heard this a lot from, like, a lot of successful people do it as well. And I haven't done it personally, but I think if one thing I can personally take away from this podcast, this would be it. So, like, my birthday is passed in April, but probably for the next year, I'll try to do that. Um, I wanted to go a bit into detail about your process. So, when you say that when if you see something interesting, you would jot down a few notes about it. How was your note taking process like? Like, would you just put a few lines on pen and paper? Would you use your phone? Or something else. The reason I'm asking this in so much detail is because I really want people who are listening to this podcast to take, if they are doing something in a similar manner, like what take something from the process that you follow that they can also apply into their lives as well.
Right. So, for me, it was mostly sketching.
Okay.
Uh, Obviously, if I'm outside, then I'm just noting down words.
Hmm.
But for me to visualize something, I need to sketch it.
Okay.
So I used to come home and then, like quickly have a rough sketch in mind. So
Hmm.
that was my this thing. And I've always noticed how people have ideas all the time, right?
Hmm.
But different people express it differently. So, like, let's say a writer.
Yeah.
Okay. A writer is also jotting down ideas, but the way he or she is going to express it is through his writing. Or
Yeah.
somebody who sings or is into writing songs is going to do it differently, or somebody who's into making videos or maybe movies is going to have a different way of his visualization is different, and the way he's going to portray his idea is different.
Yeah. That's
So
very true.
right. And then yeah, so for me it's graphics, so that's how I decided to portray my ideas and got into this field.
Awesome. Awesome. So you'll find something interesting. Let's say outside, you come back home, and the first thing you'll do is to make a rough sketch or a rough note of what you think uh, that was interesting, and then later when you're sitting down to do some work, you'll refer to that and then build up on that uh, based on whatever sort of design you want to pursue, like is it 2D, 3D, and stuff like that.
Right. And if you've seen something, okay, you've made a note of it. So it's always there in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
So now, if you're doing something very simple, like let's say if you're just even reading or maybe taking a shower, you have that thought at the back of your mind. So, you know, it just happens organically that a thought comes back to you and you add something else to that thought as to wherever you are at that point. So
Yeah.
there was one very interesting time that once I got like an addition to my idea and my dream.
Oh,
This
okay.
actually happened.
Wow.
So things like that keep happening when you start noticing stuff, when you start, making small notes about things that you think are different.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. That's great. I mean, yeah, the best ideas come when
You
uh,
least expected.
yeah. So, but showers are great for ideas. I get a lot of my ideas when I'm having a shower. The second is when I get crazy ideas when I'm meditating. So I do meditate every now and then. So that's when I get some, because my mind doesn't stop, right? I'm trying to calm my mind and it's just racing. So get good ideas. Then in the third way, when I'm getting good ideas is when I'm trying to sleep and I'm not able to sleep. So
Right.
12:30 in the middle of night when you can't sleep, you're getting these crazy ideas that what you can do in the world. So yeah, I mean, my
A
personal
lot.
way, yeah, sorry, my personal way to really jot down ideas to tweet. So if I like get a good idea, I'll just make a tweet of it and just tweet it out. And like when I'm sitting to do, let's say, to ideate about a podcast, or I'm trying to do something new with a podcast, I'll go through my tweets and then I'll try to find that thought that I had earlier. Yeah, sorry, you were saying something. I just abruptly cut you.
Uh, no, so I was just saying that um, ideas do come at any point of time. Like you have no idea when you're going to get something.
Yeah.
But that whole thing about people saying that, you get your best ideas when you're bored,
Oh
I
yeah.
think nothing is more true than that.
Yeah.
Because so like I told you, this whole shift of me working in a corporate now, and earlier I was like doing college work and I was comparatively more free.
Hmm.
I can just see the shift in my thinking process in the last 4 months. How when you're so occupied and when you're in an office space the entire time, like most of your hours of your day, and then after your work hours, you're drained.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
how is your brain going to think in that creative and
Yeah.
in a relaxed manner? So I think that line is very, very true, that to get your best ideas, you need downtime. You need to just relax. You need to be bored and do nothing.
Yeah, definitely. Have you heard this quote from Nawal Ravikant? He's pretty much active on Twitter. It goes something like this: better bored than busy.
Yeah,
Yeah, you must have heard it. So yeah, absolutely agree on that. Um, you get, I mean, you have to have some space in your head and your mind
I've
to get that
I've
idea.
heard this quote. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I've heard this quote that says, if you're forever going to be in your inbox, how are you going to think outside the box?
Oh yeah, that's a strong one. That's
Yeah.
great. Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I mean, this podcast also was like I ideated about it during the pandemic, and because we all had so much time in our hands, I thought of doing something on my own. So definitely, I think you need that space and certain level of relaxation or de-stress in your mind to have those high level thoughts, which then ideate into good ideas.
Right.
Great, great, awesome. So moving on, I was very curious about, because I saw certain uh, animations and graphics uh, which really uh, like which were really impressive to uh, to say the least. The most impressive thing about your work is that you are able to, like, your designs are extremely simple and subtle, but you're able to uh, mold a very profound meaning into those simple designs, which is very, very rare to see. Uh, so, can you just talk more about your sort of design thinking process, and how are you able to, simplify that broader message to a very subtle, let's say, art or animation?
All right. So I think I'd like to address this question with a few projects.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely. That'll be great. And we can link the projects in the show notes and the description below for everyone to, just explore them later.
Right. So the bed and the door project. So during this project, I was like, I knew this was the whole COVID time. So I knew I wanted to do something where I wanted to give a message saying that, like, let's stay indoors and, opt for not going out. So I was just thinking, like, what are the two things, the two elements that I can relate to, that would make it very intuitive for people to understand to stay indoors. So the two objects that I started out with were uh, sandals, so the flip flops, and the second one was uh, the bed.
Okay.
Okay. So the indoor object was my bed, and for outdoor, I wanted to make a slider. Okay. So this project was like I wanted to make a transition from a sandal to a bed. So basically, I made the entire animation, and I was still not very sure if, somebody who would just look at it at the first go would know what I'm actually talking about.
Yeah.
So I thought of asking my house help, like let's see if he can understand what I've made.
Okay.
So I showed him the video, which was a transition between a sandal and a sandal and the bed. So I showed it to him, and he's like, "Listen, I can't understand what you're trying to convey out of this. I'm
Okay.
very sorry, but it doesn't make sense to me at all." It was a very brutal and a very honest feedback that I got that day, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, so maybe I need to change what I'm thinking." And then I asked him, "Listen, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when I'm telling outdoors?" So
Mm-hmm.
then he's like, "Door."
Mm.
And then I was like, oh damn, yeah, like why would I use a sandal? But in case instead of that, I could just use a door. So that's how I ended up making the transition from a bed to a door. And it made even more sense because the shape is quite similar. The transition looked smoother,
Yeah.
and it all fell in place. So that was really that's when I was like, damn, ideas can literally come from anywhere and anyone. So keep talking about your ideas, keep explaining people what is going on in your mind, talking to people, and yeah.
Oh, awesome. I mean, first of all, kudos to your gesture of reaching out to your house help for a review. I haven't heard anyone doing it before in any field. So it's really profound. It's really amazing. Um, Another testament of the fact that ideas or improvements can come from anywhere. Like nobody would generally think, let's I have made a design. I'll go to my house help for a review. But you actually thought of that. I mean that speaks so much about how you think about design and how you think about your work and people around you. So definitely inputs can come from people whom you least expect to, but they can actually be really transformative to the work that you're doing. A really, really good example, and hats off to you. Um, and yeah, I mean, the inputs that you've got from your house help, the way you transition into uh, the bed and door framework, which which really came out to be really good, and I saw that. The I saw this other thing as well, which really really impressed me was there's one animation where the mask becomes like the face mask becomes a swing sort of thing. So can you also talk about that? How did that idea come from? Because that was very unique and it was very interesting.
So that was really fun as well. So I was just sitting on my dining table, and there was a mask kept on over there.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just waiting for my brother to come. We had to head out somewhere, and I was like just waiting. And that's when I took up, like, I held that mask and I started playing with it.
Oh yeah.
I just held the mask and I was just playing with it. And that movement at that minute reminded me of hammock. And that's how the whole visualization, I quickly made a sketch of it, and that's how the whole visualization happened. And then
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. Another testament that being bored is so good for you. You were just waiting for your brother to arrive and you're dead bored, I think, at that point of time. So rather than just doom scrolling on Instagram or checking Twitter, you were actually observant about your surroundings, and that really translated into such an amazing work that you did.
definitely. And one more project that I'd like to talk about was the long distance love project that I made.
Okay.
So I made this project, and I was like very happy with the entire idea of making a location icon, and then join the two location icons to make it a heart, and the whole idea of showing how two places are uniting, and the whole long distance love concept.
Mhm.
So I had sent this work out to Stephen Sagmeister for reviewing it,
Oh,
and
okay.
um like he reviewed the work and he put it out on his page, and the comments were so uh, like I really liked the comments. So one of the
Mhm.
comments was that um, right now in my current animation I've shown the dots wiping towards the side,
Mhm.
Okay, but that was a very nice addition in the comments which said that rather than making it from the sideways, you could show the dots closing from up to down. That creates a human touch to those location icons, and it also could mean like eyes shutting.
Yeah, yeah, great.
So I think that was a very beautiful addition. And somebody from somewhere else on the globe reviewing your project and having such a beautiful addition to it. So it felt damn good. And in fact, I even changed my original draft, and now I have the changed one.
Awesome, awesome. That's wonderful. I think so. Just for the information of the audience, so Stephen Sagmeister, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, um is a graphic designer, pretty famous graphic designer from Austria, and he has worked for a lot of. He's now based in New York City and worked for a lot of big names across. So, just wanted to ask, how did this whole thing happen? So, you just cold emailed him for a review, or like you were following him from a long time? You were in touch with him. How did that whole thing happen?
So yeah, uh, I had my projects ready,
Hmm.
and I wanted to send it across the people who I thought would be interested in the kind of stuff that I was doing. And I came across Stephen's page, and I emailed him my work, and he put it out. And in fact, I got my first international client through this review.
Ah,
So that was beautiful how people reached out to me for work
hmm.
through just a review.
Yeah, great, great. That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, getting a work reviewed by such a great artist is really a big deal, and definitely kudos to your work. And I think your work speaks for itself that it got reviewed by him. So pretty great. Um, awesome. We'll probably segue a bit to a couple of interesting questions that I'm really excited to ask you. During the ideation of this podcast, another thing that came up was a Woli sculpture installation project that you did. Can you just speak more about it? How was the process like?
Right. So this is for all the people that are listening to this podcast and that are Mumbaikas would be able to relate to what I'm saying more.
Mm,
So there is this um, bridge at the Worli Naka, if y'all would be aware of. So my office is just close to that place.
mhm,
And while I was interning at my current organization, they threw this they threw this in studio design competition
mhm,
where they told us that, there's this new sculpture that we'll be putting um, under this bridge near the Worli Naka. And uh, we just want you all to send us a concept, or it could be a render, or it could be a written brief about your idea, or a sketch, or something very minimal, but which is conveying your idea to the best way possible.
mhm.
So when this thing came out, I was like very excited for it,
Mm.
because at that moment, winning it or something was not the goal in point, but just doing something so different, like you're working on a sculpture. It's so
Yeah.
different than something that I've done before. So I was like completely up for it. So two people that worked in the organization, I joined in with them. So we were a group of three people,
Mhm.
and we used to sit after office and ideate about this. And we were just thinking, so we were sure that we wanted to do something related to Mumbai. And so we had a lot of thoughts. We went through, we used to write down every small thing that we can think about when we say Mumbai. But the
Mhm.
most iconic thing about Mumbai is the local train.
Yeah.
And the best thing that defines the local train is the local train handle.
Yeah.
And the minute we reached to this conclusion, we were like, this, like the local train handle has to be the main element for our project. So we picked that thing up, and we aligned those handles one behind the other, and then uh, we passed light through it.
Okay.
So we'll be putting a link to the
Yeah,
work in
definitely.
the.
We have to, because it's hard to imagine.
Yeah, it's
And
hard to
I'm
visualize it, but
yeah,
like the whole idea was to make people understand how monotonous the life in Mumbai is. Okay, and the assemblage of those handles one behind the other represents that monotony, and how everybody it loses their own personality in the crowd in a local train, be it a doctor or be it whoever, whatever profession, wherever you come from. But when you're in the train, you've just lost your identity and you're one with the crowd. So we went into studying this more in detail, where we studied how people interact very differently with the handle, right? So like somebody is holding that handle with one finger, or
okay.
sometimes people, there are like 3 4 hands on one handle.
Yeah.
And so we studied all those small things in detail, and we studied the scale and everything, and we came up with a um, with our model in place. And then we had to show the fast paced life of Mumbai as well. Because
Mhm.
no matter how monotonous this life is, we're all in this together and it doesn't stop. So we try to pass lights through all those handles, and I think the message was being conveyed pretty properly. So
Great, great.
right. So yeah, so we went on making our presentation, and everything had happened. And weeks after the submission, we realized that we've won the competition, and
Wow.
the sculpture is actually getting made.
Awesome. Awesome. That's
So
wonderful.
right. So I just can't wait. So I think by the end of the year, or yeah, it'll be done, and I just can't wait to see it. Uh, for something that we imagined, and like after a few months it's actually going to come to life. So
Awesome.
pretty excited for that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Do you have like a picture of the sculpture that we can probably put into the episode in between so that people can relate to?
Yeah, definitely, I think we should do that.
Perfect, perfect. That'd be great. I mean, I'm mind blown currently just to understand the, the level of thinking that went into creating that. And I think the way you and your team worked, there was no doubt that your whole project wouldn't have won. So awesome work that I think with with the work also, but the amount of ideation that went into it, the amount of focus that went into it, the amount of imagination and thought that went to it is completely mind blowing. So that's really, I've never seen in my life somebody thinking so much about uh, project or something like that. That's incredible. um
apart from the apart from the fact that this was just a project, and
mm,
just something that we were working on, the entire process was also fun.
yeah,
Like I remember that those 2 weeks when we were just working, we used to work like till 9 o'clock and everything in the office. We used to stay, we used to come on the weekends also and work on the project. But the entire process was so much fun, because at that point we didn't know, okay, like we didn't know if it's going to be made or whatever. But it was just fun to reach a stage where whatever we've thought, we're able to convey it.
yeah, yeah.
So it was
Incredible.
damn fun. And in fact, I'd like to tell everybody to choose their internships in such a way that, you know, apart from just working and doing the normal work that you're doing, you get different opportunities to do these kind of things as well. So I think I'm very thankful to my company to, you know, give us this opportunity and for us to
Yeah,
do something like this.
awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's a very good advice. And I think it's every designer's dream come true, that they've worked things that they have worked on or they have thought about come to life, which is happening with this project for you. So I think that's probably the best work you have done so far. uh, Great. um, One specific question: while you were doing this project for the 2 weeks, so did you guys really travel in the local day in day out to just to visualize everything?
Yeah, we're daily commuters of the local train.
Okay.
So we had a lot of sentiments attached to the
Mhm.
uh, handle since we started working on the project.
Okay.
So one thing what we had done was, like obviously take measurements and stuff to understand the scale and how much we would be scaling it up.
Mhm.
So those were some a part of the study as well.
Wow. This whole experience really make me feel like I've never been to Mumbai. It has been on my radar since a long time, but it just makes me teleport myself to Mumbai and just have that local experience once. I really want to do that personally, so that's great. Hopefully anytime soon.
Yeah, so people will crib about the local trains and they'll say all sorts of things about the local trains, but we all know that without the local trains we can't survive.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's the heart of the city, right? I mean, the closest
Definitely.
I've seen a local is in movies mostly, but I really want to experience that. Hopefully, very soon, I'll be in Mumbai and just experience that. That'll be great. And probably by that time, the sculpture will be ready as well, and I'll get to see that too.
Yeah, let's hope.
Yeah, great. Um, a very quick question. I know we have discussed this before as well, but uh, I was I was trying to reframe the question. And when you're doing the digital stuff with the design bucket, and when you compare it to, let's see, the non-digital, I mean, interiors involve digital design as well with framework and mock-ups. How do you? But it's more of like the final output is in the real world, right? So how do you compare the digital design ethos or the way you design when you're working with digital art compared to when you're doing the interior work? Are there any overlaps in your designing process, or your designing process is completely different for these two fields?
Okay. Uh, some things that you follow as a designer remain same.
Mhm.
Like, some alignment, spacing, they're the same in space or on paper.
Okay.
Those are the rules that you live by.
Mhm.
So those things are going to be more or less similar in your working process, but definitely it's also completely different because your end user is different.
Mhm.
When you're designing a space, a residential space
Yeah.
that is going to be used by those people every day, every single day of their lives.
Yeah.
So, in fact, it's very interesting to know how this design process also works. So,
Mhm.
in fact, we first approach the client and we understand their daily life. We're not actually telling them that we want to understand their daily life, but we just spend some time with them, visit their earlier house and just try to pick up things by ourselves about the way they live
Yeah.
and then design the space accordingly.
Yeah.
So it's a completely different experience, but yeah, obviously some things remain same.
Awesome. Makes sense. Makes sense. I think when I'm uh as I told you, like my cousin brother is also into architecture and design. But he's mostly into commercial space. So he'll be doing the same thing, but with more or less clients with commercial needs. So he would be thinking about how would, let's say, in an office space, employees talk to each other. And he was telling me this concept of collision spaces, which a lot of companies are concerned about. So companies really want to have certain areas where people would naturally collide with each other so that they can interact with each other and make connections. So they design like chat rooms, break rooms, cafeterias in such a way that a natural collision happens and stuff like that, which is definitely, you're probably doing the same thing with residential clients who are trying to understand their lifestyle, what they really want out of the the place they want to live in. So that really makes a lot of sense.
Right. You're basically understanding how people live to make a place for them to live in.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Uh, Sticking to the whole idea behind Design Bucket, just wanted to ask, um, is there any advice you want to give for somebody, let's say, if you teleport yourself a few years back as you were a student, so let's say there's a design student, irrespective of what field they're studying, and they really want to start a new side project or really want to showcase their work, um, either on Instagram or any other channel. So why is it really important for them to have a side project, and how can like artists promote it and make it seen? Like, how did you navigate that journey with Design Bucket?
Right. So, one thing that I would like to tell everybody is that do things on the side. You have no idea what it could translate into. So, like when I started Design Bucket, I had no idea where it'll go, or I just was doing it for the fun of it, for a little break that I wanted from my normal projects that I keep doing for college. So I started it out like that, but later, while I kept making projects, I realized people actually started approaching me for work. I got my first graphic design intern also through my Instagram page. I got people asking me to do freelance work. I got my first international project through Design Bucket.
Mhm.
And of course, you make a lot of connections with people around India as well as around the world when you have some work out there,
Yeah.
right? So, and you get reviews from people from different backgrounds. So, I think it's very important to come to that stage. Uh, the first thing that you need to do is to create stuff. And after you've created stuff, it's important to send it to the right people to make sure it's noticed. And then I'm sure you'll get really great opportunities with all of that.
Awesome. So you were reaching out during your process to some great designers, artists throughout for a
Yeah,
review.
definitely. I used to talk to, whenever I liked somebody's work, I used to approach them. I used to, try to pick up their design styles. And I used to also ask them for review on my work and how I could, take tips from there into my design process. So I'm telling you, it's amazing. And there's so much to learn from all the people out there, but the only way you can start doing all those things is if you start creating.
Yeah, that's very true, and that's great advice. I'm taking notes myself because I have been focusing in the last few months on just improving my podcast thing, just getting to the next level, and I think getting feedback from really good people out there in this game is really crucial for that. So another thing I'll take away from this podcast myself, and hopefully others will as well. So great advice. Thanks a lot for that. Awesome. We'll now move on to this section of the podcast. A few fun, lighthearted questions I really wanted to ask you. So let's keep the whole design thing aside and just want to try to. I just wanted to know you better and just ask some questions related to you and yourself, and what you like to do, your mindfulness practices and stuff like that. So we'll start with travel. I promised you that you'll get a good opportunity to really share your Goa trip at the later part of the podcast. But we just go back a bit. How was growing up uh, in Mumbai like for you as a Mumbai kid? Um, so how was that whole thing as a kid as you grew up? How was it like?
So I want to say this out here that
Mhm.
I don't think there's any other city better than Mumbai in India.
Okay. Okay.
And for all those Twitter people out there who, are only all about Bangalore. And in fact, even I had gotten into the same boat. So like while I was applying for internships, I was so keen about moving to Bangalore and, to just explore that whole tech design world and the startup culture of Bangalore.
Mhm.
But I realized after working in Mumbai, I realized that there's no city like Mumbai. It's everybody's everybody is mad behind the kind of work they do. And in fact, yeah, I want to say this, that there's no place that is more motivating than a railway station.
Mhm.
Like the local train station, I don't think there's any other place that is more motivating than that. So
Mhm.
after get up like at 7 o'clock for work, and sometimes I'm pretty lazy and I'm like, okay, I don't want to go or something, and then I'll manage to reach the station, and then I look at the entire crowd on that station who's just you know like trying their best, running, jumping onto that train to just reach work on time.
Mhm.
And that kind of motivation that they have, I think that really inspires you. Like, if they can do it, why can't you?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's very profound. Yeah, Mumbai is definitely a city that never sleeps. There's always something happening around, which is really motivating. Um, yeah, and the Bangalore supremacy that's going on Twitter is real. But yeah, like Mumbai is nevertheless, both have, I think, different cultures, different working styles. I've been to Bangalore quite a few times, but never to Mumbai, so I can't really compare. But yeah, if you're in love with Mumbai, then that's the city to be in. That's great. Um, so I think you answered the last part of this question already, but we'll just touch base on. Uh, I believe that you travel a lot. I got a sense while talking to you. So can you just share about your recent travel experience, or probably any other story that you have from your past travels?
Yeah, you're completely right about that. I love traveling. I love visiting new places and,
Mhm.
like talking to people and knowing different stories about how they live, or how, they've been, their life, how, yeah, basically their life.
Mhm.
So my most recent trip was Goa that I told you about.
Yeah.
Uh, Before that, in the lockdown, not been able to travel as much. But yeah, I think I've visited pretty much a lot of places in India, covered north, covered south a little bit, not the east as much. But yeah, maybe my next trip would be somewhere towards the east.
Yeah. So what's the favorite place in North? Because I've covered the North quite rigorously. So any favorite places out there?
So I am a beaches over mountain person.
Okay.
So I love, like, I've been to Leh,
Hmm.
and I love the whole mountains, and I've been to Shimla as well. I've
Okay.
traveled a lot in the north,
Hmm.
but I still would any day prefer a Goa vacation over a Kashmir or over a Ladakh vacation.
Yeah. Yeah, Goa has a different
That's
vibe
just
to it.
personal preference, but yeah, for me it's always beaches over mountains.
Yeah, definitely. Like Goa has a different vibe to it. I am not sure if I'm a beach person or a mountain person, because whenever I'm at a beach, I like the beach. When I'm at near mountains, I just absolutely love it. Um, I recently visited. So I went to Uttarakhand at the start of this year, and one interesting thing. So I visited Rishikesh, and I'm not sure if I've been there before, but so there are certain secluded beaches within Rishikesh where you have, like, it is a beach, but you also have the mountains. So which was pretty interesting. So there was there was a beach where, the Ganga was flowing, and it was surrounded by mountains, which was pretty profound for me, because you can actually get the best of both uh, at that place. So pretty interesting. If you get a chance to visit Rishikesh, I think that'll be great. If you haven't been there before.
Yeah, I haven't been there, but yeah, definitely looking forward to this place. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I think you should. Let's say, you let's say realistically get an opportunity to move outside Mumbai for work or for projects and stuff like that. Is there any city you would like to settle down, or probably have a shift from Mumbai, uh, or Mumbai is it? Mumbai is the place.
If you're saying settle down, then Mumbai it is.
Okay.
But if you say just a shift of a life culture, or like a little shift in my daily life, then that would be Bangalore.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty good. So that's the Bangalore supremacy is attracting you then.
Yeah, it still attracts me, but yeah, maybe I'll keep it for a couple of years down the line.
Yeah, definitely. No, definitely. I think you should visit. You'll probably like it based on the level of depth that you have. You'll probably like it. Um, awesome. We'll stick to the topic of Mumbai, but we'll just segue into food. That has been one of the top topics which I ask the guests very frequently these days. So, one absolute favorite dish that is authentic to Mumbai, and you won't have it anywhere else.
Won't have it anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, if it's, let's say you're traveling to Bangalore or Delhi and that dish is there, but you won't have it anywhere else because you know that it's authentic in Mumbai.
Okay, that would be Pani Puri.
Okay, so you love Mumbai, ki pani puri.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so pani puri is something which you wouldn't like having anywhere else than Mumbai.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And
So
if you ask me,
yeah, I really want to ask you why. Like, do they make it in a different way, or what's the secret sauce?
that you have to come to Mumbai and then find out.
Mm.
And then you know for a fact that it's better here than any other place.
Yeah, I mean, I've had pretty amazing pani puri out here in Delhi, and but yeah, I'll take that word, and I'll definitely try it when I'm in Mumbai.
Yeah. And if you ask me like my all-time favorite food, if I have to like, when you just don't know what to order, and then there's this
Yeah.
one go-to thing that you order all the time. So that is Indian Chinese for me.
Okay. How do you define Indian Chinese? I mean,
The Szechuan rice, and then
okay.
the paneer chili and all of that. So that is my go-to food.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love Chinese as well. So pretty good. Do you have some go-to places where there's always good in Mumbai? Like Mumbaikers who are listening to this podcast might have a tip or two. Any recommendations or stuff like that?
For what kind of food? I mean,
Like the Chinese that you're talking about.
oh yeah, so there's this one place in Chambur, but I don't know the name. So
Okay.
can't be of much help right now.
Okay. No worries. No worries at all.
It's
Okay.
like it's one very small place.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Usually the small places make the best food. That's totally
yeah.
awesome. Great. Cool. We'll move away from the topic of food because I'm slightly feeling that hunger and my yeah. So let's move to mindfulness. Again, a very interesting thing that I ask my guests just to get an idea of what they are doing when they are not doing their core work. Let's say for you, it's designing or working on projects and stuff like that. So, how do you spend your leisure time? Do you have other creative pursuits such as music, dance, and stuff like that? And then, how do you try to stay active in general, like sports, workout, meditation, yoga, anything of that sorts?
That's a very interesting question. And I think even if I want to know somebody better, I think this is the one thing that I'd ask them, that what is it that you do in your free time?
Yeah,
I think
pretty
that's
good
how you
question.
come to know. Yeah. So for me, if you ask me about if I do workout or if I play a sport or something, so for me it's yoga.
Okay.
Um, it's helped me a lot previously as well, and I'm gonna start it again with my work. So I'm thinking of getting up an hour early and uh, fitting my yoga into my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So that is it is yoga for me. And uh, the things that I like to do in my leisure time, I love watching movies.
Okay.
Like I love watching those old Hindi movies, and I also enjoy watching action movies.
Okay.
Those Hollywood action movies. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a mix of all genres, but I love watching movies.
Okay.
And I think nothing beats a theater experience, like everybody shifting to watching movies on Netflix. I think nothing beats that experience that you have in the theater, and then you carry the movie along with you at least for a
Yeah.
few days.
Yeah. 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 That that
So
that really makes sense. Yeah, that made me realize I haven't been to a theater since the pandemic. Um, I I don't even remember which was the last movie I saw at the theater, but really excites me to go back to those days where you can just go in there, buy some popcorn, and just enjoy the movie. Can't no like Netflix doesn't beat it. Your TV doesn't beat it. It's the whole vibe and the whole thing. Um,
exactly.
and it starts with the fragrance of popcorn as soon as you enter the theater, right? It's just incredible. I definitely need to make some plans to watch some movies without thinking. What was the last movie that you saw at a theater or at home? Like, what was the last movie that you saw?
At home, I saw this movie called Tu Hai Mera Sunday.
Okay.
So I picked this up from Twitter, some tweet, somebody mentioned it's a very wholesome movie. And
Mhm.
yeah, it is a cute movie.
Okay.
So I saw that movie last year.
And what is your absolute favorite all time? Like just for food, when you
All
can't you can't think of ordering anything, you just order Indian Chinese. When you can't think of which movie to watch, what do you go back to, let's say?
So my all-time favorite Hindi movie would be Kal Ho Na Ho.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big Kal Ho Na Ho fan, and also Andaz Apna Apna. So these two.
Both both are two classics. Are you a Shah Rukh fan in general? Uh,
No, not a Shah Rukh fan in general, but I love Kal Ho Na Ho. Like,
okay, great, great. Yeah, Shah Rukh was my favorite actor uh, back in those days, but I mean, off lately, I don't watch a lot of movies, so yeah, I don't have any favorites anymore. But yeah, but that theater experience can't really replace that. Um, great. Are you into books as well? Are you an avid reader? Do you have a favorite book or any recommendations?
so currently I'm reading a very interesting book.
Mhm.
Do you want me to show that book right now?
Oh yeah, I would love to if you have it on your table.
So this book called Sapiens, but it's
Oh,
a
great.
graphical book, so it's
Oh,
damn interesting,
great.
So it's got like
Wow.
all of
Awesome.
these.
I know about it. I really know about it.
So
That's
it's
amazing.
damn interesting. So I'm reading this book currently. But yeah, otherwise I do read a lot of design books. Um, I've read that book, Steal Like an Artist. Then I've read um, The Design of Everyday Things.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah. So yeah, I do
Great.
like reading, but just trying to find a balance, where I can give good time to reading with work.
Awesome. Great. Great. Sapiens is one of my favorites. It's lying somewhere in that book stack. Um, and the reason I know about that book is I was listening to that's a long while back, probably a year ago. I was listening to a podcast where the guest was Yuval Noah Harari, And he mentioned during that podcast that he was working. I mean, I don't know what the time frame of the podcast was, that he was working on a graphic novel for Sapiens. And now you have it in your hands, so that's pretty exciting. I was very excited at that point of time, and really need to get my hands on this as well. How's the whole? Have you read the book, or you just started with the graphic novel?
No, so I've not read the book. I'm just reading the graphic novel.
Okay, how is it? Is it good?
It's amazing. It's damn interesting.
Yeah, I really need to catch up on that. That's it's incredible. The book is really amazing, and I can just only imagine how interesting the graphic novel would be. Awesome. Just moving on to the last question we have. This is not like my original question. I just borrowed or stole it from a podcast, but really makes you think a lot about how you think about yourself and life in general. So I love asking them to guests. Really throws them back a step back to really think deep about it. When you're old and you look back on your life, so let's say you're 90 years old and you think back on your life, you're reflecting, how do you want people to remember you?
So I've always thought like even when I take up a job or if I say yes to a project that I'm gonna do, for me it's always about creating meaning.
Mhm.
People ask that what do you think is going to make you happy down the years and everything. For me, it's
Mhm.
always about making impactful, meaningful designs. So even if, say, I go ahead, create a piece of furniture in the coming years, and if I know that it's actually helped people for a better lifestyle, I think that is something that would, like fulfill my happiness.
Great. That's such a beautiful thought. And yeah, I think that's very beautiful. And with all the work and the story that you shared on the podcast, I'm pretty much sure that in the coming months, years, decades, you'd work with that thought at the back of your head, and you'll definitely make a lot of difference on the spaces and the people who use that space uh, in their lives, and their overall well-being. So all the best for that. All the best for your new role, which is going to start soon. Thank you again for taking out the time. I know we just went a really bit over time, but I really appreciate taking out the time and efforts with this. It was really a pleasure to talk to you. Some great concepts, ideas, which I'll be drawing, and probably the guests will be drawing from the podcast. Like, really a lot of thank you for everything that you did.
Thank you so much for having me. And I had a really nice time talking to you. And in fact, when I was also just making my own notes as to what all I want to talk about in this podcast, it was a nice experience because I was just reflecting my own journey till now. So thank you so much for having me. And it was a nice time.
All right, great.